So today we are going to start a new chapter, that is matrices in class 12th, and this is your chapter number 3 in term 1. So what is matrices basically? How you will define it? So what is a matrix? So the introduction you can say, or the definition of the matrix. See, matrix is basically nothing but just piece of information. It stores a piece of information. For example, suppose if we are having a detail, of like Ram has 3 books. Okay, so this information that Ram has 3 books can be stored in a form of this square brackets. Okay, so this square bracket is nothing but a matrix. That's it. Maybe the next example, if you take, now we have Ram has 3 books and 2 pens. So now these informations can be stored in like this way, 3 and 2. Okay, so where this 3 is representing the number of books and 2 is representing the number of pens that Ram has. This information can also be stored in this way as well. So 3 and 2. So this 3 is representing the number of books and 2 is representing the number of pens. Similarly, what this information is actually giving the detail here, but we can say now, see, the first value is 2 and the second value, first value is 3 and the second value is 2. Here this is representing number of books and this 2 is representing number of pens. Okay. Similarly, if you are storing the detail in this fashion, like 3 and then 2, so this is the number of books and this is about the number of pens. Fine. So this is one person, Ram has 3 books and 2 pens, that we can store in this fashion or maybe in vertical fashion, so horizontal fashion and vertical fashion. Now suppose there are 2 persons now, Ram and his friend. Okay, now we have Ram has 2 books and 3 pens. His friend Shyam has 4 books and suppose 5 pens. Now in this horizontal fashion we can store the information like this. This is, first we have the detail of Ram, so 2 books and 3 pens. Similarly for Shyam, 4 books and 5 pens. So now this is again a matrix having the detail of 2 persons. So this is about Ram and this is about Shyam. This is representing the number of books and this is representing the number of pens. So what we are doing here is we are just storing the information, we are just storing the detail of Ram and Shyam, that the number of books and the number of pens in a form of a matrix. So this is nothing but it is called a matrix. Okay, so matrix is used to just store the information, just to store the detail. Or this detail can also be stored like this in vertical fashion as well. In vertical fashion we have 2 and then 3, this is 4 and then this is 5. So here this is the detail of Ram, this is the detail of Shyam, this is about the number of books and this is about the number of pens. Okay, so you have to both the ways, आप कैसे भी store कर सकते हैं, in this session भी store कर सकते हैं और इस way में भी store कर सकते हैं. I think it is clear. So what is a matrix now? If you want to just simply define it, so matrix is nothing but it is used to store the information. Okay. Now, like we have a matrix, suppose 2, 3 and maybe 2 and 5. So this is known as the row. This is row number 1 and this is row number 2. And this vertical lines, these are called columns. So column number 1, so this is the first column and this is the second column. So every matrix is a composition of number of rows and the number of columns. Okay. So if you're having any matrix, maybe if there is only one element, so you can say there is one row and one column. So this is representing the row and this is representing the column. So row is equals to 1 and the number of columns is also 1. Here we have number of rows is equals to 2 and the number of columns is also 2. Fine. Maybe if you are having another matrix, suppose if you take some example, 2, 1 and 3, 4, 5 and 6. So how many rows are there? So number of rows is equals to 2 and the number of columns is equals to 1, 2 and 3. So horizontal lines, they represent as rows and the vertical lines, they are called columns. So next we have the order of a matrix. Next we have order of a matrix. Okay, if there is single matrix, then we call it like matrix. If there are multiple number of matrices are more than one, then it is simply called matrices. Okay. Now what is order? Suppose we have a matrix with 2 rows and 3 columns. So we can write it number of rows and number of columns. So here the number of rows are 2 and the number of columns are 3. So this defines the order of the matrix. So order is nothing but the number of rows and the number of columns. If there is a matrix having m number of rows and n number of columns, then the order is equals to number of rows into the number of columns. So this is m into n is the order of the matrix. Okay. So now with the help of this order, we can have the number of elements. Number of elements in a matrix of order m cross n is equals to m multiplied by n, so mn, or you can say nm. Okay, it is number of elements will be m and n, just the multiplication of these two numbers. For example, like this matrix is having the order of 2 and the number of columns are 3, so this order is 2 cross 3. So here we can say the number of elements will be is equals to 2 into 3, that is 6. So there are 6 number of elements. Fine. So it is very easy. So the number of elements we can have from the number, if we know the order of the matrix, we can simply tell the number of elements in the matrix. Okay. Now we have so this is about the order of the matrix. Okay. Okay, now there are some different types of matrices. So the types of matrices. Fine. So the first type of matrix is column matrix. Like we are having the first type is column matrix. So what is a column matrix? Column matrix is a matrix which is having only the column. That is not, there is no row. Only a column is there. Or you can say that is having a column matrix having only one column. Fine, having only one column. So suppose, so having only one column. Fine. For example, if you are having a matrix 3, 2 and 1. So here the number of rows is equals to 1, 2 and 3, but the number of columns is only 1. So the order of the matrix is 3 cross 1. So here we are having only a single column, that is one column is there, so this is called a column matrix. Next we have a row matrix. So just from the definition, just like similar to the column matrix, we are having a row matrix. So what is a row matrix? Having only one row. So the maybe 3, 2 and 1. So this is only one row is there and the number of columns are 3. So the order will be number of rows 1 and the number of columns is 3. So this is a matrix which is known as row matrix. Next is square matrix. So the third type of the matrices is square matrix. So 1, 2 and 3, this is the third type. Square matrix is having same number of rows and columns. Same number of rows and columns. For example, like we have a single element is there. So there is only one row and one matrix is a diagonal matrix. So this is the fourth type. So diagonal matrix is having diagonal elements as non-zero. So square matrix which is having a diagonal elements as non-zero like 1 and 2. So in a 2 cross 2 matrix we have this is a diagonal which is a non-zero and rest of the elements should be 0. Similarly we can have another matrix of order 3 cross 3 like this element is 1, this is 2 and this is 3. Maybe you can take this as 4. 0, 0, 0, this is 0, this is 0 and this is 0. So the diagonal elements जो हैं they must be non-zero. So this type of matrix is known as diagonal matrix. Next we have scalar matrix. So in the fourth, after fourth we have the fifth type of a matrix is scalar matrix. So what is a scalar matrix? It is a square matrix in which all the diagonal elements are equal, like 2, 2 and then 2. So all the diagonal elements are equal. It must be a square matrix, it must be a square matrix, it must be a diagonal matrix, and then finally it is a scalar matrix which is having all the diagonal elements as equal. Fine. Next type is identity matrix. So what is identity matrix? Identity matrix is a square matrix. Diagonal elements, all the diagonal elements are 1. So this identity से clear हो रहा है. This means 1. So all the diagonal elements must be 1. So it is also a square matrix, it must be a diagonal matrix, it must be a scalar matrix, and this all the elements must be 1. Fine. So next we have a 3 cross 3 matrix 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1. So this is also a identity matrix. Okay. Next we have the last one, that is a zero matrix. Zero matrix is nothing but all the elements are 0. So next is, this is fifth one, fifth, sixth and then this is 7th. Zero matrix. So in zero matrix, all the elements are 0. So it can be a square matrix, it can be having different number of rows and different number of columns. So all the elements are 0, then it is known as a zero matrix. And zero matrix को हम capital O से represent करते हैं, capital O. Fine. Identity matrix के लिए हम I use करते हैं. I is for identity matrix. So we will see. Fine. So this is about the types of matrices. So if you just simply revise it, so the first type of matrix is a column matrix having only one column. Second type of matrix is a row matrix having only single row. There can be multiple number of columns. The third type of a matrix is a square matrix having the same number of rows and columns. Then we are having a diagonal matrix having only the diagonal elements, rest of the elements are 0. So it must be a square matrix. Because why it should be a square matrix? In a known square matrix, suppose there are 2 rows and 3 columns, we will not be able to have a diagonal. So it is not having no diagonal is there. So for a square matrix, for a diagonal matrix, there must be a diagonal. So that's why we called it as it should be a square matrix. Fine. So similarly, next we have a scalar matrix. In a scalar matrix, all the diagonal elements are equal, rest of the elements are 0. Identity matrix having all the diagonal elements is 1, rest of the elements are 0. We just simply discussing about a square matrix. Zero matrix in which all the elements are 0. Okay. So now next is equality of matrices. Equality of matrices मतलब क्या हुआ? If two matrices are equal, अगर दो मैट्रिक्स इक्वल हैं तो what should be the condition?